Everyone. I guess we'll start off if you could just say your name and your affiliation with which film.
Hi, I'm Aimee, and I'm the writer and co-director of House Rules.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kai, and I'm a co-director of House Rules.
Hi, I'm Kayla, Abuda Galang. I wrote and directed When You Left Me on That Boulevard.
I'm Aimee, and I was in When You Left Me on That Boulevard.
Hi, I'm Kayla Dulé, and I played Lee in When You Left Me on That Boulevard.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I played Pasentia When You Left Me on That Boulevard.
My name is David Guanga Okener. I was a producer on When You Left Me on That Boulevard.
Welcome. It's so great to have everyone here. So as you can tell, this program was really just full of fun and like kind of, I don't know, high culture, low culture. We had a crazy raccoon in the beginning and James Hong with a bizarre cameo. So I guess we'll ask about House Rules first. It began it was such a comedic short, and it began what I thought would be a comedy about cultural differences, you know, taking your shoes off, but then slowly turned into a murder comedy family bonding short. So I would love to know your origin story with the short, and kind of how you arrived at that twist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that you saw like the film starting is kind of the origin of why I wrote it. Was I was really fascinated with these cultural differences that you see in dating. And yeah, like all of the awkwardness of, you know, like getting to understand your sexuality or just trying to date when you're like a teenager. And so when Kai and I were talking about it, we really wanted to heighten the genre because there's such scariness of dating, and we're like, let's just like up the ante and like think about what's the worst thing that could happen while you're on a date. And I think it arrived to this. And so, yeah, but I think at the core it is about, yeah, like the differences that we experience while we're dating and those awkward conversations that we have. But also, like, I think that the main like driving force and engine of the story is like the relationship between the mother and daughter, and having those conversations with people who are also of a different generation than you. But yeah, like coming to that, having those like that discourse and trying to just figure out how to navigate all these differences.
So it wasn't based on a true story.
No.
Yeah, I think to elaborate on Aimee's, I think one thing we really wanted to touch on was making sort of like a modern 21st century like take on the sort of like, you know, I wouldn't call it a romantic comedy, but you know, just changing up the genre a little bit. I think a big thing that we really wanted to focus on was the mother-daughter relationship of it all, and wanting to make sure that it felt a little bit more modern, or just like had a different twist to it. And I think the mom especially is a very sex-positive mom, which I think is something you don't see that often, especially in Asian cinema. So I think that's something that we wanted to like sort of like, you know, help show and kind of have just like a different take on their relationship and obviously their bond and what they will do for each other, which I think
She's
is
like
really
the
special.
tiger mom of getting her daughter laid. Kayla, I have a similar question for you. I think we all resonated with your short for obvious reasons. There was mad love for Paradise Hills and Zapatas and everything. So I think I want to ask you, A, how this short came to be, and then how you decided to set it in San Diego.
Yeah, I guess to answer the latter half of that question, I grew up in San Diego, so I just really want to go back home and make something dedicated to home, because I moved away in 2007 to Texas. But yeah, I guess like the film itself stemmed from getting to visit my mom's province back in 2019. She and her friends and family like rented a karaoke cabana, and I just like found myself in this very familiar space of not being able to understand any of their dialect, just watching them like cackle and gossip and eat a lot of food and sing. And one of my aunties just started belting out Boulevard, and like it you know, in the moment kind of like, I clocked it as like a very unmemorable power ballad. But I think, you know, in getting to recognize that I was in this very familiar space as like someone in my late 20s, you know, I found myself kind of like revisiting, I guess 2006 when I last saw them all together at my auntie's house in, you know, Southeast San Diego where I grew up. And so, you know, I just kind of started to pull out the thread from there and started to try to build that familiar scene that I found myself in. So.
Yeah, I actually want to stay with that a little bit around the actual time, 2006, it's the early odds. How hard or what was it like to kind of create that time, that feeling of that time? I mean, you got the Arizona tea and things like that, but it goes beyond that. There was like a certain, the production design, but also the light and the sound and the feeling. What was like that for you? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, I drew this primarily from I guess like the textures and fabric of my memory. I didn't really do a lot of like, you know, specific like odds, like mid-odds like research or like trying to find the technology. I feel like that came together pretty seamlessly just because, you know, I was really trying to create like a collective memory. And I think that involved, you know, gathering a cast and crew that had a shared reality of, you know, not only living in, you know, Southeast San Diego in the mid-2000s, but just understanding what it's like to, I guess, you know, grow up in the suburbs. You know, just, yeah, I like to call this like a fun little like suburban high stakes story, just because like it's dealing with matters of the heart and you know, being in a very suffocating family space. And I think, you know, getting to gather like a lot of old friends and neighbors for this, I think, you know, they were drawing from their memory too, and drawing from, actually we have a lot of the crew in attendance. Like I think we have Carla did wardrobe, Serena was on production design, you know, we were all just kind of like, we were drawing each other.
If you're involved in either of these films, why don't you raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. Filmmaking is such a collective experience, so thank you all.
Shared realities.
Well, I'd like to ask your cast some questions. I don't know what the writing process was like, but it did seem like the interaction in the car with all the homies, that just felt so organic. So I was curious what that was like for you as an actor, especially you probably were not even born in the early odds, so.
I actually was 8 years old
No.
in 2006, so I was there.
Okay.
That car scene was actually like pulled from a lot of, me and Whitney, who she's not here, she's in Hawaii, but Kayla had us do a Zoom and like kind of asked us a bunch of questions about boy drama, what it was like, what was like things that kind of stuck out to us, and we kind of made sure we were like, okay, this is what we called them. This is what we said, this was the drama, and yeah, we just kind of brought it to the car scene. So, yeah.
I have a specific question for you, Kaylin, about the monologue when you're really high, and it's just going on and on and on. How much of that was kind of improv, or how much of that was like written to the script?
We actually went through a few iterations of that monologue. The first draft of it, I remember, was very kind of vague, with like just giving less but more detail of what was happening. And as time went on and as we kind of got into the rhythm of how I was saying it and what was being highlighted of like the entire monologue, it started getting more specific on what I was saying, and all of it was written into the script. All of it was condensed down into what was seen, but the whole thing, like, we tweaked it a few times, but it went into a way that it made sense for how I was saying it, and kind of just like this lovesick high version of like Lee just being like, yeah, I like him, but I don't know what this is.
And Melissa, I feel like your character as the mom was this silent, very loving presence without ever taking up too much space. You were always there for your daughter. Can you tell us a little bit about that role?
Yeah, I'm trying to be overprotective to my daughter, Lily, but I didn't realize that she's getting, she's growing up. And then I'm trying to give her space so she can decide for her own. Yeah.
Thank you. So I actually wanted to ask the House Rules directors about the incredible mom. She was phenomenal. I mean, I just have so many. How did you cast her? How did you write her? Like, what was the process for that character development?
Yeah, so when I was writing the character of the mom, I was inspired by my own mom, who is very sex positive, which makes me so uncomfortable all the time. But I loved leaning into that and just seeing a mom who will go to great lengths to protect her daughter, help throw a body into the LA River. But also, yeah, I think that for this character, when it comes to the sex positivity piece of it, it's I think that it speaks to it's an unusual way of showing how immigrant parents really want just their kids to experience all types of things. And yeah, but when it came to casting, we ended up just reaching out to close friends that we really trusted in the Vietnamese community. And the actress Kat, who's phenomenal and the sweetest person ever, was on our radar. And then we met her, and she's just so sweet and fun and bubbly and has such a personality. And it was actually great because when we were on set, she booked a pilot. Yeah, she's gonna be on a show called Asian Baby Girl, and we're like, oh, cool. And so yeah, she's great, and she's one of the greatest people ever, kindest, most humble, and so everyone should work with her.
Yeah, and I think the best part about it too was it was her first time back acting for 10 or 15 years, so it was a big revisit for her. But I thought, obviously she was wonderful, and her and Brittany had such great chemistry, and she has a daughter of her own as well, so I think she was able to pull a lot from that, which is really sweet.
I have to say also, the development of the white hookup date guy was amazing. And we all saw, the programmers saw it, and we were cringing. We were actually repulsed by his sneakers. She was very repulsed by his sneakers. And it was so delightful to hear the whole theater have the same kind of reaction to it. And that scene where it just escalates, she's just really trying to get the sneakers off his feet before they hook up, and it results in his death. Kind of amazing, right? So how did, you just kind of kept pushing him farther and further, first he's obsessed with the plastic covers, which could have been the one joke, but he's just really into the sofa, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that character?
Yeah, Nick is really, really great. He's a good friend of ours, and he was just very down to go with it. Obviously, he had to take a few tumbles, and we dirtied up his shoes even more. So it's not fully just his shoes, but yeah, no, he was a huge sport and super, down to just dive into the role. And he was the one who made the beat. That beat was his.
The Pham jam.
Yeah, we literally woke up one morning and got a text at 2 a.m. being guys, you don't have to use this, but I made this song. He literally named it the Pham Jam, and then we ended up using that song. Our composer ran with that and turned it into this sort of beat score that you have there. So that was super fun, and we literally did not touch the beat at all. It was just first draft. We're wonderful, great. No notes. So that was also super fun and very inventive, and he's able to get into character that way.
So cool. I also have a story about him, and I'm maybe he's just a method actor, but we put a cushion down when he's about to fall, and we used a cushion from my couch that's white. And in between takes, he's in his nasty shoes, and he's just stepping on them, and he's just having a good time. And I'm in the corner of my room cringing. I don't want to say anything, and he turns to me and he's why are you laughing? And I didn't say anything. So, but we love Nick. We love Nick. And
Love you, Nick.
It, yeah.
Bruh. Bet. Okay, I was actually really curious, Kayla, because so we've shown Learning Tagalog with Kayla, which our audiences love, and kudos to this film, which actually recently won Grand Jury at Sundance. So yes, to one of us going all the way. But it's really interesting to think of those two films together. Learning Tagalog with Kayla is a totally hilarious but deadpan and charming film. And this one is a little bit more nostalgic. So I was wondering how you settled on the two. The tones are different. So I was wondering if you could speak to us about your decisions for tone for When You Left Me on That Boulevard.
You know, I think I was pulling from some of the same instincts that I had for learning Tagalog, and that's really just, again, like pulling at the fabrics and texture of memory. I feel like, you know, for learning Tagalog, I was pulling from just literal memory of watching like old VHS tapes and weird stilted language learning lessons, and just like general depression during the pandemic. And, you know, for Boulevard, you know, again, you know, there wasn't like very specific research, but just really diving into like yearbooks and love letters and really just like, you know, things that evoked like the feeling of not nostalgia, but just like, I don't know, I'm kind of losing the thread here now. But yeah, I'd say like the way that I settled on tone, again, like I really wanted to feel like a memory, or like I want every frame to feel like a postcard. And so again, pulling from, you know, my memory, and then, you know, getting like the shared reality of our cast and crew. I think that's what really settled the tone. And you know, I'm a very like cheap filmmaker, so that's why it's pretty static. I'm calling that my aesthetic choice, but really I love staying on sticks because I think big sweeping movements scare me. And I'm kind of saying this kind of like tired and half asleep, so I'm just gonna shut up now. Sorry.
Well, one of the aesthetic, like the through lines was a little bit of this gentle surrealism that opened the short, but then by the end it really turns into this, you know, the auntie morphs into a karaoke video and the boyfriend is in a surreal space. So I was wondering if you could talk to us about that. It was quite awesome. I felt like I was high, actually.
Thank you. I'm glad. You know, like I don't really know where that came from. I think like it was just really like an invasive thought or intrusive thought that I had, that she would just like break the fourth wall and look at us. Like and the funny thing is like I didn't even write that into the script until like literally a week before production, which made me really nervous. But I think because like I tend to go into these like really random like theatrical spurts when I am at, like, I'm mostly grounded, I'd say, and try to tell stories from a very grounded and realistic place, if not a little bit offbeat or off kilter. But I don't know. I think it was like my music video directing brain, or just like my really, I don't know. But you know, I'm glad that like I roped Rajani, our cinematographer, and the G&E crew into it, because like it involved a lot of like different logistical setup that I didn't know if we were prepared for, but they were game. It was great.
I'm going to open it up to the audience, and raise your hand if you've got questions. Yeah, right here.
So I'm curious on what you guys are working on next, like the next project, or what you're working on even right now.
So Kai and I often co-write and co-direct. So yeah, we're just excited to continue making things. Yeah, so I guess like for us, we would love to we're planning on doing 2 short films in 2024, which is exciting, but also scary because we have full-time jobs and we're like, how are we gonna do this? But we'll figure it out. And yeah, just like writing and trying to think of things in a longer form. But I guess like because this is a mother-daughter story, we really want to tell a father-son story, which is the thing we're working on next, which is totally different. And yeah, but very, very exciting because it is a different project, and I'm being really, really cryptic, but it's because I feel awkward pitching things. So yeah, but
yeah, we're writing and working on things, and you know, hope to be here another time.
Ideating my next short. It's supposed to be 5 minutes. I've been given parameters this time, so I'm kind of nervous. Don't really know what that's about yet. Also developing the feature that Boulevard stems from. You know, Boulevard was extracted from a really bad featured script that I wrote in 2019 that I'm revising feverishly, yeah, whatever. And also, I feel like this was asked for we're going for the Oscars. We qualified, and now we're campaigning. So if any, you know any like Academy voters, like send the shit to them, please.
I got booked for another short film. We're shooting next weekend, and it's about two guys who spiral after losing their vape.
Well, right now I'm just doing my college stuff, but other than that, I'm still looking for stuff.
Looking forward for the future film of Boulevard. I'm still the mom of Lily. And yeah, I'm full-time mom and doing freelance acting as well and commercial.
Helping Kayla out with all her creative endeavors.
Sorry, any other questions? Yeah, right there.
I'm curious for Boulevard, what logistically it kind of took to get that film together?
Man, that movie put me to debt, honestly. Not gonna lie. You know, it's funny because like I came out of the pandemic with this film, and I was like, yeah, why not, you know, shoot a film about a big family party in 2022? That's so smart. But it, you know, it was the idea was stuck on, and you know, I suddenly found myself holding myself accountable to like a team of 4 producers and a whole cast and crew. So it was too late to turn back. So really, you know, it was a pretty scrappy effort, I'd say, because I also work full time. I totally understand how hard this shit is. And so like I was, you know, writing and prepping for this film like before and, you know, after work and also during my lunch breaks, and working with the whole team that was, you know, our team was working full time too, so that's why we had such a large and robust producing group. But really, we were just like making this like flying by the seat of our pants. We didn't get any grants because that was really hard. You know, the short film funding landscape is very sparse and highly competitive. So we did a big See and Spark campaign in 2021, and I think that's how we gathered like a lot of like community support and attention, and actually found some of our casts, which was pretty sick. And then from there, just lots and lots of Zoom meetings, because I live in Austin. David also lives in Austin, and 2 of our producers live in New York. So lots of Zoom meetings and Zoom rehearsals, very intensive Zoom rehearsals. I don't know if this is answering your question adequately. Okay, thank you. Just lots of coordination, and losing sleep, because again, working full time while making a movie is really hard. Sorry.
Right up here in front.
Hi, I wanted to ask the tonal question to the House Rules team as well. I thought the shifts were so seamless and the rhythm was perfect, so how did you approach and handle that?
Yeah, I think like we wanted to have some of a blend of tone where, especially when it comes to like the opening sequences, when it plays into the, you know, the classic, you know, coming of age, teenage montage. I mean, that's like, those were the type of movies and shows I grew up on. But as I've gotten older and I've just been watching more things, I really love leaning into the absurdist side of things. And so, yeah, I think like, even though it's a pretty contained story until it obviously goes outside and then you dump the body, we wanted to take a space and still bring in like a lot of like different flavor and tempo, and so that yeah, like the pace just changes throughout, which we think is follows like the emotional journey of the characters. But yeah, I think that for us, we wanted to blend this like coming of age, like awkward tone with like an absurdist, like a little bit silly, yeah, like out of left field feeling. And so yeah, you can.
Yeah, and I think one thing that actually really helped was we did a very, very mini reshoot. So we did like literally half a day, I think after a work day or something, where we literally got our 2 actors and like our DP and just like, we did a lot of the bedroom stuff in a reshoot. just because we were able to watch the movie and sort of like know what we have and weren't super fulfilled with everything that we got, or wanted to kind of like reshoot just part of the different. A lot of the stuff where she's like messing with the shoes is done in a reshoot, so I think that was also a way to like help capture and like elevate the comedy tone, or kind of keep it throughout, since like there's such a jarring shift halfway through where it's like still kind of funny, but there's like a lot more stakes going on. So I think that was actually very super helpful in the long run and helping us kind of like mesh the movie a little bit better together. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yep, back there.
You guys talked about the other cast people. How did you cast the multi date?
Norm.
We love Norm.
We love Norm, and we love Patrick, who plays Norm. Norm is inspired by my mom's boyfriend. And he's very clean, and
That's his car.
that is his car too. Luckily, we were able to find him on Backstage, which whenever you use like an online like casting call like website, you get a lot. But we saw his self-tape and we loved him, and yeah, that's how we found him. And then yeah, Nick was a friend. Brittany was a friend of a friend. We went to USC, and so we have a good network through that. But yeah, Patrick was an online find.
And fun fact, he is actually an engineer full-time and went to MIT, so he just acts on the side and literally came from the Bay Area to like be a part of it for 2 days and was just like, yeah, so you know, he's acting and he's an engineer and yeah, he's awesome. So.
Norm is so helpful. I am dying to ask Kaylin a little bit about your character. Starting out, I mean, it was such a sweet portrait of firsts, like a first boyfriend, and then, or maybe boyfriend, we're talking, you know, of first kind of getting high, and then, you know, just that progression. And your expression is slowly getting higher and higher. So I was just curious what that was like for you. It seemed like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so funny because like one of the main things people usually ask me about is like my facial expressions, which I don't notice because it's my face, but everyone else seems to. I have to thank my dad. He's up there somewhere because he's the one who actually taught me a lot of facial expressions at a young age that actually helped me, I guess. But like the whole progression of it, like I didn't really notice until Kayla was telling me, like, yeah, you're very like expressive with how you're saying this stuff, or like the tonal shifts or what she's feeling. And I think just like the whole thing with like her and going throughout like this whole thing with like getting high and just having these realizations with like a boy that she really likes. I think it's just very like universal with everyone and how they feel about like being in these firsts. And I think just being high elevates a lot of it. I've never been high, just to clarify, but I know a lot of people who have gotten high. So I was emulating. But
because her dad's here.
but all of it, like I'm kind of likely in a lot of ways. One of them is like people watching in the car. You see kind of people watching her cousins. And for me, it's kind of just like mirroring what I haven't like actually experienced, but also drawing from the experiences that I have had that I can connect with Lee.
Yeah. We've got the last screening in theater, so we can keep going. Don't be shy. Are there any questions from the audience? Right back there.
So what is your real job?
Directed to.
Real job.
Okay.
What do you do outside of?
Yeah, I work for a production company founded by Lulu Wong. So she's a idol of mine. But yeah, so I work in production and development. We have a show coming out in January called Expats. You guys should watch it. Yeah.
Similarly, also work at a production studio and development. You know, we make movies and shows and docs and whatnot, so it's a nice desk job.
I work at the University of Texas as a producer, more in like pedagogical documentary content, and really just translating lectures into hopefully engaging films. Professors are gnarly.
True. Outside of acting, I'm an influencer.
Yes.
I'm a film student at SFSU. So.
As I said, I'm a freelancer. I can do act, and I do makeup artist. I'm a makeup artist also, and I do some couple of commercials.
I just work in tech.
Right there.
I was gonna ask both, like, any specific films that you guys took influence for, but I also wanted to ask for Boulevard, like, because you said you're making a feature out of a short film, like any feature films based off short films? Because I know a lot of like indie films that I've seen, like, you know, that they're able to get funding and to make their feature films, so I was just curious about that.
Oh, is the question if I have any like references that are like features based on shorts or?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry, that was big.
Oh no, it's okay. You're fine. I don't necessarily think that this is like it could be some of a reference. Like Shiva Baby's a pretty good example of like a short that turned to a feature, and really like I'm just really admiring Emma Seligman's pathway. She has you know, really cool like down to earth director who turned a short into, I don't know, just like a big cultural footprint of a movie. She also just directed Bottoms, which is pretty good. Highly recommend that. I miss sex comedies, are amazing. But sorry, there's another question to that? Was it references?
My general question was any specific films that inspired your guys' films?
Two big films that inspired Boulevard, I'd say Frances Ha, just because I really love the conciseness of that humor and how snapshotty it is. Along with Yi Yi by Edward Young, just because I really love how you feel like the politics and like the culture like in the landscape and how it informs how characters move through the environment. And how observational and textured his frames are. He's also a very, you know, static frame filmmaker. And I don't know if that's because he's cheap or because like, you know, he just loves observing, but you know, yeah.
I'm trying to think. Maybe Edge of 17 was definitely one. We pulled a lot from that montage specifically. I'm trying to think of what, like Booksmart, kind of like going into that sort of humor as well.
I'd also say like Pen 15. I love that show, and I think it, especially when it comes to like, I love both characters in that show, but like Maya Erskine's character, she's just very weird, and I love that because I don't see that for a lot of Asian female characters. So yes, I would say Pen 15 is a big reference.
Any other questions? Yeah, back there.
Y'all talked about, sorry, for House Rules, y'all talked about how a big inspiration for the film was exploring those cultural differences in dating. I'm wondering if the film was going to be more like entirely focused on that originally, or if y'all had that twist, the big death twist, like if that was a part of the plan the whole time.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that like really catapulted me into writing the story was very randomly, but I was listening to a podcast with Ocean Vuong, and who's a poet, and him being associated with this film, he'd probably be like, what the heck, how? But he just talked about having a respect for your space, and when you enter your home, you just take off your shoes and things like that. And he's just talking about it in a very eloquent way. And I was just in my car listening to this, and I was like, like, I haven't really thought about that as much as I should. And I was like, ooh, what if you put that into the framework of dating? And so when I started writing this was in August of 2021, so a while back, the character that we see is Jeff. He does not die in my original draft. And it was a fantasy sequence, and then Kai read it, and he was like, you should just make it real. Like, it would be fun. Like, who cares? And so, yeah. No, it was not a part of the plan, but I'm glad we went there.
Yeah, no, I think we did it. Yeah.
I have a question for Kayla.
So you did such an evocative job with the family party, kind of the ebbs and flows of a long party at a family house. where, you know, there's prayer and there's food and then there's hanging out on the sofa and then, you know, guys at the table. And there's moments where you choose not to translate the Tagalog and you just sort of let the sounds of the kids kind of roll over you. And I was wondering, was that a big decision for you? And if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I really want to I guess, take a retrospective view of the family party. And, you know, again, like I only understand like the curse words in Tagalog and not a lick of like either my parents' dialect, honestly. And so I was very intentional about not translating any of the Tagalog. And in terms of like, thank you for acknowledging the sound design, just because that was such a big pillar. I'd say Lovers Rock was like a big reference for that, just because I really love how you just feel the space through how sonic that movie is. Just because like I think half my memory of parties is really just sound, is hearing like a bunch of kids, you know, running amok, you know, cackling of aunties. You know, they heard mahjong tiles. They really went up to bat for that because I had them playing poker at first, so they won that battle. But yeah, no, I'd say it was I really wanted to be super specific and super textured on all fronts, especially sonically.
All right, well, thank you all so much for sharing your films with us and your time and conversation, and thank you all for coming out. We'll see you over the next few days.